Okay, awesome. We're 2 minutes in, so we'll get going here. Also, thank you everyone for joining us here today. This is our first coffee chat with Minga. So have a star-studded cast here today. Some true professionals, and yeah, really looking forward to learning from them and just having a conversation here and learning a little bit more about boosting school culture and student engagement. So it should be an interesting chat. Before we dive in, just a couple of quick housekeeping tips. So obviously we can't see you. Hopefully you can see us. If you have any questions at all, feel free to hop in the Q&A or just throw your question in the chat. A few members of the Minga team are kind of here in the background as well. So if there's any product related questions or just anything in general that you need, feel free to throw it in there, and one of us will take that on. We are going to try and have a bit of a Q&A session at the end. So as we get into the discussion, if there's anything that kind of strikes a chord for you, or you want to dive into a certain subject a little bit deeper, yeah, throw it in there and we'll do our best to get to those questions. And then of course, we're going to record the call today. So any of you that have joined, or any folks that weren't able to make it but accepted the invite, we'll follow up and make sure you get all of the material after the call as well. Awesome. So let's go into introduction. So my name's Jeremy, sales director here at Minga. Really excited to be able to facilitate the conversation. I think this is something that we're going to try and do on a more regular cadence here at Minga. At the end of the day, the folks that we can learn the most from are the folks who are actually operating the schools, and that's all of you. So I think being able to bring people together and facilitate a conversation like this shows a lot of value. So I'll throw it over to Sean, then over to Laura, and then over to Chris, and you guys can introduce yourselves.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Jeremy. Sean Diaz, principal at Mayfair Middle and High School, 712 school with 2,400 students in Southern California, located just north of Long Beach, southwestern, kind of on the border of Orange County and Los Angeles County in Southern California. Nice to be here this morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Fragulia. I am an activities director at Golden Valley High School, which is located in Central California between Modesto and Fresno. And we are a high school of about almost 2,000 students.
Alrighty then. Hi, everybody. Chris James. You can see the information there on the screen. In addition to being the activities director at Desert Oasis High School, I was a student council advisor at another comprehensive high school for 10 years, and I'm still a classroom teacher. I have 2 sections every day and then 2 sections of activities directing. So with regard to Minga and classroom operations, I can hopefully share a bunch or help from the classroom teacher perspective. I'm happy to be here and hope to learn as much as I share.
Awesome. Chris, I might actually have to follow up with you on your headset because that audio is crystal clear. That's top quality audio coming from you right now. I love that.
Right on.
Okay, cool. Well, let's just dive right in, folks. I think we want to start off by just understanding, what inspires you to focus on student engagement, and how have you seen it change kind of in your school or district, I guess, over the years? I don't know, maybe Sean, do you want to hit on that one first?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I think engagement has always been a critical element of education. I think it's just how we engage our students is different than it was 33 years ago when I first got into education. And back in the early 90s, the fact that engagement just looked different, it felt different. You were struggling more with engagement than we used to, but it's always been a struggle. But I think it's just at a higher level, just based on a number of different factors, and one of the biggest factors is obviously technology as well. So we need to use that to our advantage, because we have it, and it's an opportunity to increase engagement. Minga is a great tool to do so.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we'd love to hear that. Curious, Laura, what are your thoughts?
I agree with what Sean's saying. Obviously with Minga, it's just that tool that has helped us gather the data to see how many students are attending our events, so that as an activities director, what can I do to increase student involvement by looking at those numbers, but also it has helped incentivize going to events. And so students are driven, not always, but a lot of times they're driven by incentives, and Minga has given us that platform to use so that we can gather points from students, and they can turn around and turn those points into different incentives that they can earn.
I wonder, like, I'm sure every school is a little bit different, but what are like the top performing, I guess, like rewards, or what gets your students the most excited from an incentive perspective?
Well, obviously a free yearbook or a free prom ticket would be amazing. We haven't done that since COVID, but just because, student involvement is revving back up. But those are those big ticket items of anything in our student store, which is great for us too, because it helps move product in our student store. I'm able to funnel it, it kind of using Minga and the points to move my product out of the student store by giving it away to students. So it's helped in that way. So anything that we sell in here, and then candy. Candy's a big one. Giving away candy, California has got some rules about that in schools, but students love candy, and so that it motivates them quite a bit.
Is there a top tier candy that kind of accelerates or does better than the rest?
Sour Patch Kids. Those
Nice.
yeah.
I promise we're not sponsored by Sour Patch Kids, but
anything like hot Cheetos too works well.
Hot Cheetos.
Okay. I was more of a Doritos guy myself. You go ahead, John.
Yeah, one of the things too is trying to create incentives that don't cost anything. We're using Minga for front of the line passes at dances and things of that sort. So if you've accumulated a number of different points for doing any number of things, we try and create that free bonus that doesn't cost us anything, but the reward is great. So if you don't have to wait in line to check into a prom of 700 kids or 400 kids, and you're getting to the front of the line because you have Minga, that there's some value there to that for our kids. So it's finding those value spots at every school. That's going to be different at every school. It's going to be different at every level of school too. So I'm a 7-12 school. So what really has value for our 7th and 8th graders does not have the same value for our high schools, and vice versa.
Totally. What about you, Sean? What do you think inspires you to focus on student engagement? Where do you find your passion from?
Well, my passion comes from obviously years in education and understanding as a former coach and classroom teacher that you don't get anywhere without engaging the students and the stakeholders into the program, into your community. So that engagement is critical. It looks and feels different in a number of different ways. Family engagement is different than student engagement. Student engagement is different from staff engagement. It's just getting everybody on the same page. And once you get that synergy, you can really move a school and a community culturally together. And that's the fun part about engagement. Is it's not just about in the classroom, it's everywhere. It's building that culture of engagement and wanting to be the hub of the community. So to me, that's an exciting challenge.
Totally. I feel like it's foundational to success, whether you're in school, you're outside of the classroom in the community, or you're at work after you leave school, right? I think we chatted a little bit about that too in kind of a conversation earlier. Curious, Chris, like what are some of the, I guess, pain points or challenges from like a channelization perspective that you've been able to kind of fix over at your site?
What Minga has really helped us do is understand what we believed anecdotally, but now you have data that you can share, and we all know that decision makers prefer data, especially if it goes counter to what their gut is telling them. So if you have the data, you can influence the decision making process. Understanding just how deep the impact of after school activities, clubs and events, football games, the true impact of after school arts programs and things like that. When you can start to measure those things, you can really begin to talk to administrators, to financial people, to say, hey, of the three legs that hold this school up, activities, academics, and athletics, we're underserving this particular group, or we're ignoring this potential for growth to engage our students, to engage our community members. I've had more than one response from parents, and even my principal called to double check that our data was correct and accurate. We track our after school returns, so we kick everybody out of the building. Anyone who needs to be in the building after instructional hours scans through Minga, and we pay attention to what they're doing and why. And then we update a public website to let them know just how many people are actually engaged in our community outside the instructional day. And it makes a difference, and Minga has helped us to do that. So understanding how many people can we expect, how many doors do we need for throughput, what kind of load. Anecdotally, we know some days are busier than other days. Well, now we have data, and I can show you going back 2 years or so that Wednesday is the peak day after school. So we need more support, more help. We can afford to go down one campus security monitor on a Monday and a Friday because those are lower impact days. Wednesdays, we can't afford that. And so if we know we have an issue with campus security monitors after school, we can adjust for that because the data tells us what we believed in the first place. We have more people on campus, and we need more supervision for those students as they move around the building. Very helpful.
That's amazing. How long, like, I love this. Are we sure that this data is accurate? Like, that's such a funny question. How did you overcome that, or how quickly did that question come up in your journey?
Again, as long as my belief is when leadership believes something and then the data confirms that belief, they're happy to continue to run down that road. The pain point comes when they're not particularly sure, or what they believe to be true isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a year and a half, 2 years worth of data indicating football game attendance, basketball game attendance, that's not just ticket sales, but is actually people coming through the gate and scanning in, particularly for those non-revenue events, art club, book club, all of those, chess club. How many people truly belong to that? And in our district level activities, folks want to know, as they are currently tabulated and counted, how many hers are involved, how many hymns are involved, what's the grade level distribution. Sometimes administrators are surprised to hear it's not the seniors that are the most engaged. In fact, it's typically sophomores and juniors. And we have data to show that. And so we can serve those people who need to be served, and we can identify perhaps people who are being underserved or underrepresented.
Yeah, that's where I really get, I think, pretty passionate, is when we start to talk about removing bias, because we actually have data. So yeah, I love what I'm hearing. I think that makes a ton of sense. Laura, I saw you kind of nodding along. I feel like you've had like some similar experiences or conversations potentially.
Sorry, I've got my phone ringing here.
No worries.
Yes, I mean, like you said, it's the proof is all there. So, I mean, the numbers are there. The numbers are in the system. So if, we tell them we need leadership, we tell them we need certain things, of course, yes, the proof is there.
Amazing. And so this is really interesting. We're talking about like school culture and engagement from like a very positive lens. Like, we're focusing on, attending events, after school activities, things of that nature. But what about when it comes to maybe some of like that unfortunate negative culture that you're trying to deal with or overcome from a behavior perspective? Are there any like specific strategies that anyone's using to manage that? Yeah, I'd love to, I think, learn, and I'm sure the audience would love to learn a little bit more about what you find works. So anyone who feels has something, they can hop in.
I can tell you the hall pass manager has been amazing. We've taken back control of our hallways from our students. We've limited the number of hall passes that our students can have throughout the day. Some students get less based off of their behavior. their abuse of the hall pass system. We've completely taken the hall pass away from some students, but we always know which students are out of class. We can always tell, we can look in the system and see who's supposed to be out, who's supposed to be in class. Our campus liaisons have iPads and they stand by the bathrooms and they can tell if a student is supposed to be there. It's also helped our teachers in the classroom. There's less disruption. Teachers can keep instructing without the hassle of writing a pass. All a student has to do, and everybody can handle this their own way, but at our school, a student just has to say, can I use the restroom? Teacher says, make a Minga, and then they're out the door. And so that has been the number one benefit for our teachers right now is the Minga Hall Pass.
Amazing.
And
sorry, go ahead.
Have been less, a lot of less disruptions, a lot of less, gosh, there was a point where our bathrooms were getting trashed. And it was really bad. And now we can tell who was in the bathroom at what time and what happened. So it's been great with that.
Amazing. How about for you, Sean? What strategies are you using?
Well, I think the hall pass managers is probably one of the more effective tools that Minga has, probably the most effective tool, but there's a ton of other things. But that piece really that Laura spoke about is very accurate. I mean, I can think of a real recent relevant example where a student and another student got into an altercation on campus, and the story that was told was a very interesting tale, as I'm sure we've all heard. But we were able to very quickly, because the teacher had the student issue a Minga pass at the time of departure, we were able to track the students' whereabouts and really go through a 16 to 17 minute timeline that, as the student explained to parent, I was only out of class for a minute or two. But we were able to really just utilize Minga to just pinpoint when the student left, follow that student, and really conduct a thorough investigation of the events. And that doesn't happen as quickly or as swiftly with the old school, sign out on a piece of paper, hey, security, go around to every classroom, pick up who left. We can very quickly know who left between a specific time. The reporting mechanism is fantastic. It is really amazing, and it shows who's out of class at any given moment and what the reason is for. And to Laura's point as well, iPads, electronic devices that allow our support personnel and anybody on staff to be able to say, hey, Jeremy, I see you're supposed to be in the library, but you're over here by the restroom. So which one is it, my friend? And make that right choice or push the student in the right direction. But it also does help solve issues and solve some disciplinary things that sometimes might not have gotten solved previously.
So Q3 administration started thinking about trying to get a handle on what had become an out of control tardy problem in my building with students reporting late to class. And fourth quarter, they launched a program because what they wanted to do is learn from it. Fourth quarter, build some best practices inside the building, begin to train the audience to include the staff and the students. And it's important for everybody to keep in mind that there is a learning curve and an implementation curve. And the first week you do anything, you won't have anything. It's the first month, the first quarter, the first year, you begin to make gains and begin to understand the process. And so the behavior automations that Minga allows for has really helped administration understand the scope of their problem. It's such a better tool than what our district offers, which does track tardies, but it's not automated. It doesn't provide you consequences. It doesn't do a tremendous amount of the work that Minga does. And that's the point of the tool, to let something do heavy lifting for you so you can begin to really put your resources at the point of pain where you need to make some fixes, as opposed to not worrying about things that you think might be a problem, which in fact aren't. So at my school, Q4, we started moving data out of our SIS. We're doing it manually now because that's how the systems talk to each other once a day, and tossing it into Minga. And then the automations begin in Minga for tracking students who are habitually tardy. what days they're tardy, what periods they're tardy, and then those conversations can begin with parents and guardians, with counselors, with learning strategists. The administration initiated that based upon what they learned from other things that Minga could do for them, and they're excited already as a leadership team moving forward to the 24-25 school year to begin the year with that tool in place and hopefully keep that from, instead of having tardies become a boiling problem that you need to deal with in second quarter and beyond, it's just a simmering issue that you can manage for the entire year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes so much sense. There's always that transition and I guess change management process that you have to go through. But once you're implemented, then it's about managing kind of the bottom end of that funnel, I suppose. I'm curious, when we think about school culture and student engagement, and then we think about something like a digital hall pass solution, and implementing that. How does that affect school culture? Like, is that a journey as well? Wondering like what that's like at the start, how it feels maybe in the middle in the growth period, and then how it feels once you kind of arrive in the new normal. Because I feel like each of those stages is probably a little bit different. Chris, I see you nodding. I don't know, or Sean, I don't know, either of you.
Yeah, we began with an introduction to faculty with regard to changing from paper passes to electronic passes, using a side-by-side comparison. So used with fidelity, the paper pass requires this much time, this much effort, this many steps. So if you do it correctly, and that's an assumption, if you do it correctly, and this is 18 months ago, here's what Minga can do for you. It can lower the friction inside your room. It can allow for campus security monitors and administration to provide you supports when we have the data to back up what a classroom teacher is saying about students being gone too long and too many students in the hallway and those sorts of things. The students were relatively flexible with the process. We started with just voluntary adoption by faculty and staff. Then we transitioned to required. And of course, you still have some rooms where it doesn't really apply. Typically, your PE teachers are already mobile with a clipboard and a pencil and a whistle and all that good stuff, or an iPad or whatever. So they've already been doing digital things. And sometimes those bathrooms are self-contained inside a gymnasium area and whatnot. So perhaps the pass doesn't need to be mandatory for them. As you get the teachers on board, the students are relatively flexible. What's the process? How do I manipulate the process to do what it is that I want to do? I think that will never not be the case. I think Minga afforded us, through the learning curve, the opportunity to teach the students, you scan to enter, you scan to exit for everything that we do. And when you tell them and their parents, it's in an effort to help you be safer, less anxiety ridden, more secure in your transit of the building and those sorts of things. They may or may not like it, but eventually what it becomes is the standard operating procedure. We have students now who walk into classrooms looking for a place to scan in. And then they see there's a sub in the room, so maybe they don't have to for that particular period or that particular day. So it's beginning to become the cultural norm, and that's going to take some time, and you'll take a couple of steps forward and a couple steps back, but it's a better environment. Is it ever going to be a perfect environment? I don't think so, but it's a better environment than before. Unquestioned, ask any of the stakeholders.
And he nailed it on that was it. He said it all. I mean, the automated calls home have been amazing. We just actually used them for our prom. And so when students checked into prom, they have their digital ID out. They know we're going to scan it. It took a couple of years, but now Minga it's a word on campus that everybody knows and what we use. And so when we scanned our students in, it made a phone call home that your student has arrived at prom. And when they left, we scanned them out so that parents were kept in contact of where their student was, their child was the entire time. And in this day and age, I think that's really important. It's also just, when a kid is tardy, when a student is tardy, it's making a phone call home. When a student doesn't have their PE clothes, we've actually worked it out with our PE teachers that it will call home and let the the staff know that, or the parents know that the PE student doesn't have their clothes for the day. So Minga's just become, it is what it is. We get your Minga out, you're gonna get scanned. Everybody just knows what's gonna happen.
My experience is not too dissimilar to either of the two, but also the thing that has really helped in the last year is that we transitioned in our cafeteria, that the cafeteria is now scanning Minga for their distribution of their food. And so Minga IDs actually work better than the hard copy IDs, which is funny, and it scans faster. But in California, kids, everybody gets free lunch. And so it has, the implementation of that piece has now also helped out cafeteria services and food services. And plus now, yet and again, food being the motivator, they want food, so they're going to have a Minga ID. But it's integrating it into as much as you possibly can. Laura talked about PE. Again, there's just so many different ways to integrate it. One of the things that from a lens of safety is another area. One of the things that has happened, and it was kind of a post event where students were, we had something at dismissal and we had to pull the students back in on campus. And as this is happening, I'm like, God, I wish I had Minga set up for an emergency check-in in various locations on campus. And that's now going to be implemented next year. So if we are in a situation, staff can do a quick check-in with who's in their room as another level of safety, just to check in. And it was very easy in that moment, just because we had good communication, but Minga would make it even easier.
Yeah, I mean, that's great to hear. I think like those types of stories, and just the general sense from a culture perspective that school feels safer than it did before, whether that's at the administrative level, at the staff level, or at the student level. I think whoever within the building feels safer or is feeling a better sense of safety, I mean, that's a win at the end of the day. There's no question about that. So I guess also what I'm hearing is, sometimes like in the old world, let's say like pre-Minga or just pre-digital solution, you might, as a student, you'd be maybe nervous, scared, anxious to go to the bathroom or the washroom or the restroom because you don't know what's happening out there. And that's a major shift in the new world, it sounds like. Awesome.
Yeah, the capacity for Minga to, again, it has to be used with fidelity. The humans are always the point that over which you don't have direct control. The capacity for Minga to not allow Laura on a hall pass when Sean is on a hall pass, to create that conflict there, really helps when counselors or administrators are speaking with parents or guardians to say, when your student is out on a hall pass, we have a system in place to help us, not to make sure, but to help us keep your students safer. And unquestionably.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I'd love to shift gears and kind of think, we've been talking about a little bit of what you've all done, in the last, 16 to 24 months with Minga, but from a school culture perspective, from a student engagement perspective, like what's the 24-25 year plan? Like where are you investing your time and energy? Just in general, like what are you excited about for next year for your students?
I'll start, Sean, and then I'll toss it to you. My administration came to us with about 4 weeks left in the school year and said, we still have too many hangers out after school. We know who's there because they scanned in. Nobody's back in the building without us knowing about it. And they're trying to create a balance where you create a sense of community, but it's safer than the general community. There's less. There are fewer people on campus without a purpose, as opposed to just hanging about. And so they asked if we could make it work. Will Minga help us do this? And the answer was absolutely. And so we start relatively early in August in the Clark County School District, so we'll allow 2 or 3 weeks of learning for everybody. And again, keep in mind now, our seniors, this will be their 3rd year with Minga. Juniors a 2nd year with Minga. The sophomores had it. So only the freshman class is brand new to what this means and how to do it. So it's a smaller learning curve each iteration for your audience. They want, beginning 1 September, nobody's in the building without being on a roster, a list, or having an appointment, period. You don't scan in just to get in because you're not on the no access list. You scan in because you have an actual reason to be there. So essentially everybody will be ticketed, if you will, just as an analogy. That's not how we're going to use it. Everyone will have a reason for being in the building. And again, administration wants to reduce the unaccounted for load. And that load is always on your custodians who aren't sure that those students are supposed to be there, your campus security monitors, your teachers who want to know that everybody who's in the building is there for a reason, as opposed to just wandering about using the bathrooms, grabbing the chips and stuff. So we're looking forward to that.
Awesome.
We're going to really take a deep dive into the first, year and a half of data that we have this summer. I've got a committee. I'm going to marry that with some of the staff challenges that they've identified through surveys and end of the year type stuff. And we are going to sit down together with that committee. It's on my board of the Minga committee. And really, how can we fine tune Minga to meet the needs of what are the issues on our campus? And that's the nice part, is the adaptability of it. Chris made reference to a no access list. We certainly have a no access list that feeds itself off of the data that Minga is collecting. And you can get yourself off that list when you perform the consequence or duty to which you are assigned to get that access back. I think we're all struggling with attendance. We're all struggling with not every student struggling with behavior, but attendance is a big thing across the board. And so, our big piece is we want our students to be 95% and above on campus, which is even higher than the chronic absenteeism threshold. We want our students to be on time at that same level. And we don't want those behaviors. So when all of those things are being fed into Minga to create a no access, it's an immediate response that you're on the no access list or off of it based on your current situation. And that can change based on your decision to change your behavior, change your habits, make slight adjustments. And again, it's instant feedback, it's data driven. So we're gonna continue to build that concept of utilizing the data to make Minga work for us to the best of the ability. And we're going to continue to build in incentives that really resonate with our students.
Love that. Love that. How about you, Laura? Is there anything, at all that you're, I guess, excited about for next year that you're bringing in for the school?
I think that one thing that we've talked about doing, and we have a new principal coming in, so I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but we would like to start scanning students in every morning. They do show us their digital ID. They have to show us their ID when they come on campus, but we would love to scan them. Of course, there's the issue with Wi-Fi around our campus and equipment to scan. So that's our hurdle that we have to kind of jump over and figure out. But we're using Minga for quite a few things already. I think as far as like our tardies, we also have a no cell phone policy. We use Minga for both of those to monitor both of those violations in the behavior manager. And I think we could fine tune those. Of course, cell phones are always a problem, and tardies as well. So those are things that I think we could, look into and obviously work on those. But I think if adding anything new, it'd probably just be scanning our students in on campus in the mornings.
Awesome. Yeah, it's funny. I think that's a trend actually that we're seeing. We did a couple of recent campus visits, and it's definitely something that we're seeing across the board. So a bit of a shift potentially, at least from our perspective. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate everyone hanging on and going through the chat. There's a couple of questions from the audience I wanted to throw your way, and then we'll look to close out the conversation and let everyone get back to work. But it sounds like from Aaron, it sounds like you're offering some great incentives for students to use Minga to earn rewards. Can you speak to why gamification helps from an engagement perspective, why it works?
I think gamification is part of our society. You were asking the panel, right? Us?
Yes, yes, please.
I think gamification is part of our society today. I put this back on a teacher. Why are we giving away Minga points for things that students should be doing? And I said, why do you put in your phone number when you go to Ralph's or to the grocery store? Because there's incentives. You're checking in, and you have to buy groceries anyway. But you're now part of an incentive program. Every one of us probably has 5 or 6 apps on here for Panera, for McDonald's, for Jack in the Box, In-N-Out, whatever the case may be. Corporate America incentivizes the great level of work that's going on. This is our 21st century technology and society at its best is and whether it's as a best or not, it is a part of our culture. And so incentivization is really important. It's not a new concept, but it's everywhere now. So why not make it work in school as well?
I think everybody in the room is probably completely comfortable with the idea that if behaviors are an issue, then you need to change behaviors. One of the ways that you change behaviors is with just rewards, leveling, scaffolding, and all that good stuff. And so this helps us continue that process. And I don't disagree that whatever the minimum standard is, that's not rewarded. That's where you need to get on your own in our building. That's where you need to be of your own volition intrinsically. And even when you don't incentivize that line, that there are incentives above that line is in fact itself an incentive. And so we all change our behaviors based upon, what's it mean for me? What's it going to do for me? How comfortable is it going to help me be? And you want to encourage good behaviors and discourage not constructive behaviors. And this helps us do that with real data, using a system that students are already familiar with because it helps us with tardies. They scan in after school. This is just another way to encourage positive behaviors and discourage not positive behaviors.
Awesome. Love that. So we only have a few minutes, so I'm just going to do one more quick question, and it's just related to your last comment there, Sean, around your goal for hitting 95% attendance. Like, that's a lofty goal, and I love it. It'd be amazing if everyone had that goal, but I guess, like, what are the key things that have you gotten to the point where okay, these are some of the strategies that we're going to try to implement to hit that goal? Or are you still in the kind of discovery brainstorming stage?
I think we're closer than we were, a little bit of time ago. I do know that we went from, we're at 19.7% chronic absenteeism, 2022-23 dashboard, and I know we're on track to be at 12. And that's 1 year turnaround, and that was with more implementation of. We are checking in kids when they arrive in late, Laura. To Laura's point, we don't check them in as they arrive on time, but we do check them in daily when they arrive late to track that morning data, because that helps us have a conversation with the families at home about. And they're getting an automatic phone call home, because there was a question in the chat about, does it call home automatically? If you set it up that way, it does. So when we check in kids late in the morning, they're getting a phone call automatically home every day they're late. And that's automatic from Minga. They're also getting a notification via email, whatever's on file. And so the piece that is there is for us is just to continue to build in some systems of communication that really tell our parents, as we all know, the grass grows where you water it. So we're watering that show up to school on time, and it's benefiting us. We have other work to do in tardies, but we'll get there.
I love it. Those are great strategies, and I'm sure that's helpful for everyone, and great numbers too. So good for you. Amazing work. And Sean, I know you might have to step away early, so we have about 5 more minutes. So thanks so much for being here. If you have to hop off, don't feel pressure to hang out too much longer.
I do. My staff is waiting for me. It's our end of year staff morning meeting, so I do have to run. But thank you so much, and I wish everybody well in this journey.
Thank you, Sean. Laura, and Chris, one final question here coming in from Renee, and I think it's a really good question. She says, Do we get any complaints, or have you gotten any complaints from parents on the amount of Minga notifications they receive? It sounds like right now they're doing alerts for praises and guidances. Is that too much? What's been your experience?
I've had no experience with any negative feedback regarding it, any complaints. I thought for sure that when we were alerting parents at 11 o'clock that their student was leaving prom, we might get, somebody upset at us for waking them up at that late at night. But honestly, I think parents appreciate it. They know that we're keeping their kids safe. And I think that's important.
Yeah, it's almost as if you're highlighting for them just that much more how involved you are and how much you care and
Yes.
all those good things. Yeah.
Keeping the lines of communication open, I think is really important.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's amazing to hear. Awesome. Well, I know we only have a few minutes left, so for you, Laura and Chris, are there any questions that maybe I haven't asked today that I should be asking? I know that's a funny question, but I always love to end any conversation that way, because then we'll get into the final piece that we may have missed.
Not that I can think of. I think it is important to understand that for anybody out there who's considering Minga is a tool just like all the rest of the tools, and what I think what people inside buildings are looking for is always the best mousetrap they can find to solve as many problems as they can solve. And undoubtedly, this tool has helped my building tremendously. I've yet to run across anybody who said, "Oh, I wish we didn't have this." Students, faculty and staff, and administration, and parents for that matter. We don't have a tremendous amount of parent engagement, and that's I'm not certain why that is, but I've not run across anyone who says, "Stop contacting us, stop alerting us." And when we explain the purpose of the contacts and the information and the tool, it's difficult to argue against the safety of your campus. It's difficult to argue against helping students to see the errors of their ways. So it's a great tool for that purpose.
Amazing. Well, we really appreciate your time, energy, and focus and dedication. And thanks for kind of singing the praises of Minga and teaching us a little bit more about what school engagement and culture can look like, and some successful strategies. A lot of really great takeaways. I wish everyone a great summer. Rest, take some time away if you can, I hope. And for all the audience, we're going to be following up, as I said, via email. We'll get the recording and some of the content over to you. And feel free to reach out to us with any questions or any needs. And Laura and Chris, can't thank you enough. So thank you.
Take care. Bye, everybody.